A massive winter storm continues to track east, and half of the country now under some sort of winter storm warning, ice storm warning, with crippling amounts of ice for portions of the South and mid Atlantic region expected. Historic amounts of snow for some as well, in areas that haven't seen this much snow in maybe as much as a decade. To make matters worse, behind the storm, it's not going to warm up. In fact, the weather stays wintry through next week. And there's a signal for yet perhaps another storm, perhaps for parts of the deep south as we get towards the end of next week and the following weekend as well. So winter is here with a vengeance. We are going to be tracking multiple storms in the coming weeks, but we'll spend most of the time in this video talking about the storm at hand here that has half the country under some sort of watch or warning. I'm going to share my screen with you here and show you where we do have those winter storm warnings. New Mexico to New England. Yes, that much of the country right now is bracing for impacts here that are going to be around through the weekend into next week. We have winter storm warnings in pink, including much of the state of Texas, all of Oklahoma pretty much, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, right up the Ohio River Valley into the Northeast, and winter storm watches now up to northern Maine, with the exception of the few farthest counties to the north. Those will likely get upgraded to winter storm warnings over the early part of the weekend. Unfortunately, it's not just snow. We're talking about severe amounts of ice, and we have ice storm warnings for parts of East Texas, central and northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas, northern and western portions of Mississippi, southwest Tennessee, northwest Alabama, portions of East Tennessee, much of North Georgia, including metro Atlanta, upstate and the Midlands of South Carolina, western North Carolina, including the metro Charlotte area, and even portions of the southern Piedmont and Sandhills region of North Carolina. And we do have winter weather advisories for areas near the coast, but not quite at the coast, for North Carolina, South Carolina, parts of Georgia as well. We are expecting some sort of frozen precipitation to fall all the way down, perhaps as far south as Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, Lafayette, Galveston, Texas, and maybe as far down as a coastal bend of Texas by the time we get into Sunday. Heavy snow back in the southern Rockies with this storm, and some lake effect snow as well in areas that are used to it this time of the year, but it could actually be magnified by this storm as it tracks northeast. So a big mess coming. We've expected this for a few days. Now the details are finally coming to a front where we know exactly where things are going to fall, but there are still some possible adjustments to the forecast that will be minor, and those are mainly amounts of snow, amounts of ice, and maybe some minor timing adjustments as well. Here are the key things you need to know. Snowfall accumulation. Many places in the Northeast are going to pick up a foot or more of snow. We've not seen that in the last 5 years. We've had some bigger storms, but they've managed to avoid the big cities of the Northeast. This storm is expected to bring primarily snow to New York City, Philadelphia, Boston, all of southern New England, upstate New York, Pittsburgh, and all of Ohio, and all the way back down to St. Louis and central Oklahoma. There will be areas where this will mix with some sleet and freezing rain on the southern part, but primarily we're talking snow. Farther to the south, this is going to be a major ice storm over parts of Tennessee, Mississippi, down to Louisiana and Texas for sure, as we do have some southerly and southwesterly flow aloft, which will bring warmer air aloft up and over a much colder air mass. So what falls will melt before it hits the ground and then fall into a sub-freezing air mass. And that shallow layer is where we're going to have the biggest problems. And I think especially in Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and parts of Tennessee, where amounts could go over an inch of accumulating ice. More than that will fall, but that's how much will stick. And we're going to have a little bit of wind to go with that and falling temperatures. So just a very crippling system here for some of us, especially in the pink and purple areas here. The Carolinas down to North Georgia will also be dealing with severe ice. Parts of Virginia and West Virginia will as well. And we will see substantial amounts of ice mixed in with the snow, or at least changing over to ice on the I-95 corridor across northern Virginia, southern Maryland, all the way into South Jersey and Philadelphia. So 180 of us, a million Americans, so more than half of America is going to be dealing with this storm. Parts of Canada will as well. And it will stick around into next week and follow with extreme amounts of cold. So not just being prepared for this storm, but the aftermath into next week, and perhaps extended power outages would be a smart idea as well. Let's take a look at those impacts here. And you see the area of extreme impacts. This is where the power may be out for over a week. And it's possible in Mississippi, unfortunately, and perhaps southeast Arkansas, northern Louisiana as well, and even parts of North Georgia. I'm going to zoom in so you can see these areas of strongest impact. Unfortunately, areas hit by Hurricane Helene are also very much at risk of having extreme amounts of impact. I'm thinking about areas around and to the west and southwest of Brevard, North Carolina, maybe near Boone as well, in northern Georgia. The combination of sub-freezing temperatures, increasing wind, and heavy amounts of precipitation make this extreme. Outside of that, we're going to see widespread major impacts over much of Oklahoma, Arkansas, northeast Texas, northern Louisiana, all the way up the Ohio River into the northeast. Places like Charlotte, Raleigh, Greenville, Spartanburg, maybe even the Atlanta area, especially the north side of Atlanta, all the way up to Richmond, Virginia, into the I-95 corridor. Expect significant delays, impossible travel at times by the time we get into Sunday and Sunday night, and likely issues heading into next week with travel, including school closings, delays, major issues here. And we even have impacts possible into Detroit, Chicago, parts of Iowa, Nebraska, northern Kansas for sure. So a very big storm, one of the biggest geographic storms I've seen in recent memory, although the amounts of snow will not be the highest we've seen in a while overall. Just a large footprint will be left from this storm. Let's take a look at the current satellite image, and you can see on the map that our storm still has not made landfall. It's southwest of San Diego here, but it's pulling in Pacific moisture from the southwest and a very active subtropical jet stream. You also see a very active northern part of the jet sending that cold air down. And we have an Arctic boundary that is going to move in ahead of the moisture. And that's what sets the stage here for this wintry setup. You can see on the satellite, kind of tough to see, but you might be able to make it out. We've got a large, expansive area of snowpack, which is actually magnifying that cold. When you got more snow on the ground, it feeds back into the temperatures. It just keeps that cold air locked in. That's why places like Alaska, Northwest Canada are pretty much uninhabitable throughout the 3 months of winter, at least December, January, February, maybe March as well. Well, that snowpack is there. We've expected that this winter, that it was going to be active here, and that will magnify the cold that continues to come down in pieces straight out of central Canada. So we're going to see multiple pieces of cold coming in ahead of this system. But the moisture that comes in from the Gulf will eventually bring some southwesterly flow aloft, and that is what's going to send in moisture here that's going to lead to enhanced precipitation, higher amounts of snow, even though temperatures will be below freezing for much of the storm system. I'm going to show you the GFS model here, and I'll also show you the European. There are still some differences, the GFS being a little farther south and a little bit colder. But overnight into tomorrow morning, we're going to see heavy snow falling in the southern plains with heavy sleet. That's the area in purple in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, stretching into southern Arkansas, and then freezing rain, moderate levels of that falling in central Texas, and cold rain falling as our Arctic front's actually going to be all the way down into here. You can see the front's going to be here. That cold air presses down, and our sub-freezing line is right about here. So despite the cold air falling, we've got warmer air aloft coming up and over it. That's where we get that layer where temperatures do come above freezing aloft and then fall back down below freezing. In fact, perhaps much colder, maybe even some teens and 20s where we have that frozen but not snow precipitation. And I'd like to say that that's never happened, but that is, believe it or not all that uncommon in this portion of the country. It does happen from time to time. We did see that back in February 2021 during that nasty outbreak that left a lot of Texas and Oklahoma in the dark. Well, we are seeing a kind of a similar setup here with this storm system. We're going to see the moisture from this storm gradually moving north and east. There's two pieces to it. The first piece is going to spread up and try to move up to the west of the Appalachians. So snow will break out first over the Ohio and Tennessee valleys during the day tomorrow, and then second into the central Appalachians, Virginia, and the far northern part of North Carolina by tomorrow evening. We will see this big area of high pressure bringing a lot of cold, supplying that cold down into the mid-Atlantic area. As strong as it looks, there will still be so much warming aloft that this snow does switch over to sleet across the mid-Atlantic areas by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, and rain at the coast. And the reason why is that we're going to see a secondary low forming right near the Atlantic coast of North Carolina. And what happens here is that very quickly warms things up near the coastal waters here and just inland as well. And what starts as snow transitions over to sleet and eventually all the way over to rain near the coast of Virginia and North Carolina and certainly South Carolina. So we have low pressure here sending warm air up west of the mountains, and we have low pressure near the coast sending warmer air up the coast. And what happens is you have this cold air wedge that is settled into the Piedmont east of the mountains, and that is sustaining this frozen precipitation all the way down to the Atlantic, maybe all the way down to Columbia and Florence in South Carolina. That is not an uncommon setup, but what happens is we have warmer temperatures west of the mountains, colder temperatures east, and the front gets stuck to where it looks kind of like this, where the cold air presses on to the north, from north to south, and then you have much warmer air pressing in from the south and west, and you have a stark contrast in temperatures. Where those storms meet is where the heaviest precipitation falls, right in here. Very heavy rainfalls. The problem is it'll be below freezing when that's happening back in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. I think for Alabama, unless you're in the western part of the state, this is primarily a heavy rain event. And when you get closer to the Gulf Coast later on Sunday, there will be the threat for a little bit of severe weather down here. There will be faster winds aloft. I do think we do see a few tornadoes and damaging wind gusts closer to the coast, perhaps in Mississippi, Alabama, and eventually moving into western Florida. I don't think this is going to be a major outbreak of severe weather, but that is something that we don't want to ignore, as there will be a marginal risk for severe weather. But as we get to the nighttime hours, that risk does start to diminish. As we move into the evening hours, the snow continues to quickly expand into the northeast. We see sleet mixing in Jersey, around Maryland, northern Delaware. We see freezing rain continuing to spread northward into West Virginia. And then we see a change back to snow as cold air returns. But with this coastal low coming up, temperatures will be warming up in the Piedmont, and there is hope that temperatures could try to make their way back above freezing from Raleigh and Charlotte on southward. Now, there will still be a wedge of cold air, so I don't want to promise you that we are going to escape any more ice Sunday night in Raleigh. I still think that is possible. Same goes for Charlotte, and I do think the GFS could be a little bit too warm in this situation. The European certainly could be, but overall, you get the picture here. It's going to be primarily an ice storm in the Carolinas, except near the coastline. And then when you get down to Charleston and Georgia, coastal Georgia, it's going to be a rainstorm. So really nasty storm here. Snow spreads up to Chicago and Detroit, then eventually all the way into northern Maine, and heavy snow will fall in southern Nova Scotia early in the day on Monday as the low pressure system tracks away. Behind the system, it gets a lot colder. Later in the video, I'm going to talk about what's to come beyond this system. If you're in the state of Florida, especially the peninsula, it's going to be warm, very warm for Sunday. It'll feel like early spring. And then we do see a change to much cooler weather and just some light rain moving through Sunday night, Monday morning, and then colder temperatures Monday night, with the risk perhaps for a freeze by the time we get to Tuesday morning. The European model, in large amounts, it does agree with the GFS, but it does have some subtle differences. Mainly, it's warmer and farther north with this low pressure system. It pulls liquid rain, not frozen rain, all the way up into southwestern parts of West Virginia, all the way up to Huntington. By the time we get to about 1 or 2 in the afternoon on Sunday, it also pulls a heavier snow just a little bit farther north. I'll show you snow amounts in a little bit, so you'll see what I mean by that. But overall, it is starting to agree. You see, though, Sunday evening, it's got that warm tongue coming up the I-77 corridor in West Virginia, getting very close to Clarksburg and Bridgeport, maybe even close to Morgantown. But if you're in Pittsburgh, I do think this is all snow for you. So there will be a line where that stops. And it's just a very nasty storm to try to figure out. Lots of rain coming for the central Gulf Coast region, some severe weather. And in Texas, it's just going to be brutally cold here for Sunday as well. Taking a look at one of our short range models, this is the RRFS. I just want to walk you through this really quickly. And you're going to see here, this is 5 in the morning tomorrow morning. So our winter storm is in progress in the southern plains. We see heavy rain going over to freezing rain in northern Louisiana tomorrow morning. And then you can kind of see here, this is all freezing rain. So the coloring on this weather bell site's a little different than Tropical Tidbits. They switched these two, but the purple indicates freezing rain, and it will be coming down very hard tomorrow afternoon in the Delta region. There's some sleet here around Nashville, so snow goes over to sleet in the afternoon, and then we see it going to freezing rain in the evening, and then we see just plain rain, if you want to call it plain rain. It won't be sticking to things around Atlanta. So Atlanta could have some ice, but this particular model says it will warm up enough so that the severe ice stays to the north of Atlanta. That will not be the case, though, when you get into upstate South Carolina. I do think we see more extended amounts of freezing rain going through the night tomorrow night and into Sunday. In fact, you see the wedge actually strengthens some, and you see this line drops down even closer to Augusta by the time we get to Sunday morning. So there will be a battleground here that we have to watch very closely. The models at this resolution, 3 kilometers, sometimes will do a better job than what the global models that I just showed you do, but that doesn't mean they're going to nail it. But you can see here, there will be some transition zones that can affect the amounts that we see out of this storm system. Regardless, anybody that's seeing this darker blue or seeing this pink or these purple colors will be dealing with extended amounts of difficult travel going on into Sunday and into Sunday night as well. You can see there's this line here that could have some gusty winds and gusty rains with it, and even some storms down here near the Gulf Coast. Some of these could have some severe weather with them here. This is mid-afternoon on Sunday, so something to keep an eye on there. And then we're going to see this storm continuing to march eastward. And take a look at this. This is what I talked about here for Sunday evening. Despite what the Europeans showed, this cold air mass in North Carolina is still hanging on even into the evening. And despite the fact that we have a powerful front and a low tracking northwest of the Piedmont of North Carolina, the cold air that's near the surface doesn't want to let up. And so we may continue to have freezing rain going through all of Sunday night around Raleigh. And maybe for an hour or two, it stops or it just goes to 32 or 33 degrees. But at that point, the damage has been done. So it will be moving out here by morning on Monday. We will see some scattered showers in Florida, but for the most part, our storm is finished at that point. All right, I'm going to run through this a lot more quickly now. Probability of heavy snow, 3 inches or more, is 90 to 100% from Oklahoma and Kansas up in the southern parts of New England. That hasn't changed much. Here's the chances for 6 inches or more of accumulating snow following the Ohio River and then going right into the big cities of the Northeast. Here's a look at where a foot or more of snow could fall. Boston area has a good chance of that. New York City area has a 50-50 shot. Philly could see that as well. Kentucky has a pretty good chance. And eastern Oklahoma, there's some higher elevations here, actually has a 70 or 80% chance of seeing a foot or more of accumulating snow from this storm. 18 inches, believe it or not, there's still a pretty decent little chance of that happening in eastern Oklahoma, as well as parts of Kentucky and West Virginia, and scattered about here portions of the Northeast. So this will definitely dump a lot of snow with it. Here's what the European is showing. You see the areas of the heaviest amount of snow over the next 5 days. As we zoom in, I'll show you the model differences. This is through Monday afternoon, and that just skipped ahead, but let's go back here to Monday afternoon. And you will see here, there are some differences where the GFS is a little bit farther south and east than the European with the heaviest snow in Kansas, but I don't know why that's doing that. I apologize. But you see European has 20 inches of snow falling in the middle of Oklahoma, and the GFS has 24 around Fort Smith, Arkansas. So both think there will be a big snowfall somewhere in this area of at least 18 inches. My goodness, that needs to stop. Southern Missouri, we're going to see a foot or more of snow for most of that area. Little Rock is going to be a lot tougher because sleet will mix in. We could see 4 to 8 inches, but when you get farther south, we may see those numbers come down substantially. And the European doesn't think there's going to be a whole lot of snow. Let me do this. The European doesn't think there's going to be a whole lot of snow around Dallas, but the GFS does indicate north and west of Dallas and Fort Worth, there could be a few inches. So that's kind of where that line gets drawn, where there's accumulating snow. Moving farther to the east, you're going to be able to see that the heaviest snow in Ohio really hasn't shifted a whole lot, although the GFS thinks that southern Ohio is going to get higher amounts of snow than the European, which thinks northern Ohio will, but all the state could be looking at least 10 inches for the most part. Some spots, maybe 20. Parts of West Virginia as well could stand seeing over 20 inches, including Parkersburg and maybe Huntington, although the European indicates there'll be some mixing there. So again, this is going to come down to the wire, but regardless, that's a big storm no matter who you ask. And then as we look at Virginia, North Carolina, the border still looks like kind of where we start to see accumulation. South of the border, it doesn't look like much snow sticks, although maybe in Ashe County, we may see some accumulation. Same goes for northeastern parts of Tennessee. But Tennessee, this is really where the forecast is difficult in the state of Tennessee, especially around Nashville, because the European thinks it's going to mix pretty quickly, and we only get a couple of inches. Whereas the GFS says Nashville, just to the north, maybe Gallatin, those areas could see over 6 inches. So I'm not going to say the forecast is 1 to 10 inches, but you get my drift here. There's going to be a very fine line that could shift in one direction or the other here. Here's a look at the Northeast. We have more agreement for the most part, although the European says there'll be a little bit more mixing in South Jersey and the Delmarva. Still, though, 7 or 8 inches of snow will be more than we've seen in a long time. But the GFS indicates that it's colder, and there's a good shot at least a foot of snow around Philadelphia and perhaps as much as 16 or even 20 inches around New York City. Again, we're just talking a few extra inches. I don't think it changes the impacts a whole lot, but this will be a pretty big snow. And for southern New England, we have the potential for some of these higher elevations just outside of Boston, outside of Hartford, maybe picking up over 20 inches of snow. We are seeing these numbers coming up in Maine. I remember a couple of days ago, we were only talking a few inches. Now, even in Caribou, we could be looking at close to 10 inches. Southern parts of Maine could be picking up to 18 inches of accumulation. So that's what we're looking at here. Here's the RRFS model. This is that short range model I talked about. And you can see it's a little more in line with the European than what the GFS is showing. It's got higher amounts around Indianapolis, lower amounts around Nashville. So more in line with that warmer, farther north solution at this time. Interestingly, not showing 20 inches of snow around Fort Smith or Oklahoma City, only showing about 10. So there's still quite a bit of uncertainty here with this, but we are still expecting a heavy amount of snow. Let's talk about ice. I brought this up yesterday, the SPIA. These are amounts of ice, coupled with winds, bringing you what kind of impacts we could be talking about. First of all, anybody who gets 1.5 inches or more of accumulating ice will be out of commission for at least 10 days, if not longer. There are some possible areas that could happen. We're looking at the Delta region and maybe parts of the Western Carolinas and Northeast Georgia. When we add wind to that, that magnifies it. So even 1/2 inch of accumulation of ice and 35-mile-an-hour winds can cause catastrophic damage. For a lot of the area we're talking about, it's between 2 and 4. So we are going to have power outages. We're going to have very hazardous travel. But a lot of the bigger populated areas may be closer to 1 or 2. At least I hope that that's what it ends up being. Map, which hasn't changed a whole lot. And I'm going to actually show you all some numbers here in a moment. But looking at winds, you can see there will be some gustier winds on the backside of this system, but nothing super strong at this point. Mainly 15, 20-mile-an-hour winds, maybe a few gusts to 30 back in Texas. So kind of moderately strong winds. Oklahoma will actually have some stronger wind gusts to deal with. But as we look towards the southeast, the areas that I'm actually most worried about are up against the mountains where there could be some gusts in excess of 50 to 60 miles per hour after the storm passes through. So East Tennessee in particular, and I know a lot of you had to deal with Helene. This area is particularly vulnerable to strong winds. If there's any ice to begin with, that's going to magnify things. But on the North Carolina side of the mountains, that's where things I think are going to be roughest. And I'm thinking of Northeast Georgia. I'm thinking of areas to the southwest of Asheville and outside of places like Franklin and Cullowhee. I think we could have some major issues here that cause widespread issues going into next week as well. This is the FRAM. This is accumulating ice, freezing rain accumulating. So what falls doesn't all accumulate. You get some accretion that sticks together, but you still see a pretty big area here getting over 1 inch of actual accumulation. And this model in particular shows it happening right in here. So also across northeastern Louisiana. This is the area I've circled that's going to get at least 1 inch of it. Another area that has to be concerned with at least 1/2 inch looks like it's going to be this area. So we should watch it close to Houston and down close to Baton Rouge and Lafayette, but I think it's primarily off to your north at this time. Looking farther to the east, we're going to show you the southeastern and mid-south here. And again, it's the mountains I'm most concerned with, as you all can imagine. In particular, let me back this up here. It's 84 hours. Sorry, I got my controls up that you all cannot see. But we are looking at some pretty substantial amounts of ice, in particular, right up against the mountains in here, amounts that may get close to 1 inch. So this is how much actually sticks to all the trees, not how much falls. That will be more. That will perhaps be more than 1 inch. West of Charlotte, west of Winston-Salem, these are where the amounts are likely to be the highest, even parts of West Virginia. There are some concerns here in parts of Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky as well for substantial amounts of ice. Atlanta is going to be really difficult because we're kind of right on the cusp, but northeast of Atlanta for sure. Lake Lanier areas could have some substantial ice as well. And those numbers aren't quite as daunting when we get up into Northern Virginia, Maryland, but there still could be ice issues on the I-95 corridor and even on the eastern part of Maryland and in central and northern Delaware as well. There's also going to be some sleet here. We've been talking about that, and that's part of the reason we may see less snow falling south and east of Oklahoma City if sleet mixes in. If it doesn't mix in, then those numbers are certainly going to be realized, but this is a possibility as well. And less sleet when we get over into the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic, but perhaps an inch of sleet mixed in here, cutting down our totals in Virginia, in Maryland, and even in the Philadelphia area as well. All right, we'll talk about the cold here. This is a big deal next week. Record lows are possible in parts of the Southeast. Near all-time records are possible, depending on how this all plays out. We're talking very dangerous cold and a high risk of that all the way into next weekend in parts of the Southeast. There's a 60% risk of hazardous cold going right into next weekend. Our wind chills will get down to 0 degrees or lower for most of the country. Even in Florida, they'll drop into the teens and 20s, low to mid 30s in southwestern Florida. So this will be brutal cold for all of us here. In South Texas, wind chills will get down into the teens. In North Texas, they'll get down to 10 to 20 below. And in the upper parts of the Midwest, 50 to 60 degrees below zero. Here's a look at how the temperature anomalies play out. You see where that cold is today. It moves into the south. It moves into the east. And then we get a break from it with this storm system moving up. But then that cold air just recycles itself. And here's Tuesday morning. It'll be a very cold morning in parts of the south, especially where there's snow on the ground. Wednesday, still cold. There's actually a second wave of cold coming in at the end of next week that will last into the weekend. After that, I don't see any true signs of major warming up, but there will be some warming in the upper Midwest. We will still have below average temperatures carrying into the beginning of February for much of the eastern and southern portion of the country. Here's a look at what the low temperatures are going to look like. And you just see brutal cold Sunday all the way down into Texas, sub-zero temperatures in Kansas. Even colder as we get to Monday morning, down to single digits around Dallas, Fort Worth, down to near zero in Chicago. Tuesday, that cold shifts east. Mississippi, places that are getting hit by the ice storm will be below zero on Tuesday morning. Tennessee will be 5 to 10 degrees below zero if this is correct. And then a little bit warmer on Wednesday until our next system comes in on Friday and Saturday. And it just remains below freezing at night for most of these areas right through next weekend. Southeastern United States here, we are going to warm up for Sunday, and then it turns colder Monday behind our storm. Big time cold Tuesday shifts eastward here. Wednesday, still pretty cold. Notice Tuesday morning in the Carolinas, we're below zero in the mountains. Single digits in Charlotte, maybe even the north side of Atlanta. Raleigh, Durham, single digits for the first time since 2018, it looks like. So almost 10 years. Single digits in Philadelphia, below zero west of D.C. Brutally cold temperatures. All of Ohio will be below zero except on the lakeshore here. Still very cold Wednesday morning and Thursday morning. And then here comes the next wave Friday. I'm not ignoring you in Florida, but your cold is coming. Not, though, until Monday night and Tuesday morning, but it will be pretty cold down here as well, with freezing temperatures inland in South Florida by Wednesday morning. And finally, in northeast and New England, it's already very cold. We see a little bit of relief, if you want to call it that, only because it's snowing. But then the cold recycles itself Wednesday and Thursday, and we just continue to stay cold into next weekend. All right, we do need to talk about what's happening behind this storm. We can't get specific yet. It's too early for that. But there are signals here for a clipper system that could bring some snow into the mid-Atlantic region, maybe the Carolinas and parts of Pennsylvania here Wednesday night or Thursday. We may see accumulating snow in places like Charlotte, Raleigh, and Richmond, where we didn't get it from this storm. Not a big one, but with cold temperatures, I would expect school delays on Thursday if this holds. Behind it, there's a signal for another storm on the base end of this very cold air mass. And this storm is going to have a lot more cold air to deal with than the one that we're dealing with this weekend. So it does appear we're going to have some sort of wintry precipitation all the way down to the Gulf Coast Friday night into Saturday. The European is an outlier. It drills the storm all the way down into the Gulf, takes it across Florida, and then tries to bring it up the East Coast, but it does fail. Previous runs have had a storm coming up the coast, but this model run of the European says, believe it or not, there could be some wintry weather in Georgia, South Carolina, but overall not really a big storm. That wouldn't be, though, until next Sunday or Monday, and that's awfully far away. Canadian and the GFS models do certainly have raised some eyebrows. These are, of course, just one model run, so we can't get too excited just yet. But the Canadian model shows a massive snowstorm for Texas, Louisiana, and the Gulf region on Friday night and Saturday, and a huge storm for the Southeast, the Carolinas, as we get to Sunday and Sunday night. Again, I'm not forecasting this. I'm not going to show you numbers for a reason, because I'm not here to freak people out and do something irresponsible. But it's not just one model showing it. The GFS is also talking about this. It has been off and on for the last several days. Here's a GFS for Friday night and Saturday. A little farther north with that rain snow line, but it has snow in Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi. And this adds insult to injury for those that are dealing with the ice storm. You don't want to deal with snow on top of it, but that is a possibility. And then as we get into Saturday night and Sunday, we have a major storm coming up the East Coast. And again, I'm not going to show you numbers here, but use your imagination. It's potentially a very big storm if it plays out that way. But again, with it being 7 to 10 days away, all we're really looking for is some consistency and some signal in the models. We're not going to look at specifics at least until early next week. So right now, it's just something to kind of keep an eye on. We'll have a better feel for how things play out. Again, if you had looked at models last Sunday for this upcoming weekend, just remember how much those shifted. I will give you the same word of caution for this upcoming weekend as well. There are some probabilities, though, for some snow. This is Friday night and Saturday in Texas. There are chances for accumulating snow. It goes all the way into the northwestern Gulf here on Saturday. So the fact that we see accumulating snow as a possibility in Louisiana and Texas definitely is an eye raiser. But again, this is just an ensemble average. It's not a super high chance just yet. Here's the Canadian, though. It does show that possibility. It's actually pretty high in parts of Texas, west of Dallas. It's got a better than 50% chance of accumulation. So we do definitely have a winter storm signal. But after that, we don't really know exactly how that's going to play out. And then looking farther east, here's the AIFS showing a potential snow signal, basically the I-20 corridor up into the Carolinas Saturday night into Sunday, and then up into the East Coast region Sunday night into Monday of next week, or the following week, I should say. And here's the Canadian showing something similar as well. We're looking at timeline, Texas, Louisiana, Friday night, Saturday, the rest of the Southeast, Saturday night, Sunday, Mid-Atlantic region, perhaps later Sunday into next Monday, February the 2nd. So we've got a ways to go for that. I'll show you amounts, model averages at this point. This is not a forecast. This is taking all the possibilities and averaging them together. But that signal is definitely down there at this point. So we're going to see what direction it trends. Does it continue to show this? Does it fade? Does the track shift? Again, it's cold enough for snow. That we do know. But where does the track take it? How do things align? Again, we don't know these things just yet. It's still way off in the future, being about 200 hours away. So keep track on that here. Just something to keep your eyes on for the future. But again, we aren't going to know anything, at least for a couple more days. So I appreciate you joining me here. I hope everybody stays safe through the storm. I will see you all again here on Saturday, probably in the afternoon. And as always, I do want to close things out. Encouragement as a Christian, I do want to share that word. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. This is Psalm 91, 1 and 2. God gives us refuge when we are dealing with dark times. He gives us shelter from the storm. This is something we need badly, especially now with this kind of weather. And you have the opportunity to ask God for shelter, for grace, for mercy, for help, because we can't help ourselves. That's just not how we're designed. God created us. He created you and me, but He didn't give us the power to do anything but to follow Him and to submit to Him and let Him have the steering wheel here. Jesus, take the wheel, is what He says. So I want to encourage you to just spend more time in prayer. If you're going to be stuck indoors for a few days, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. You don't have to choose what I believe, and I'm not going to tell you what to do and what not to do, but that is how I operate and how I truly hope that you operate, because it gives me joy to be able to share that word with you today. I hope you all are safe, and thank you so much for following. And if you have not yet subscribed, I urge you to do so. We'll have more updates coming here on Saturday. God bless you.